Imran, tell me a little bit about you, your road, your journey, and your passion for employee experience.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah. I'm old, as you can see. So I've
No.
been working for over 25 years. I think I started out in sales, like a lot of people when they're fresh out of university. Then got into lecturing at uni. I then, like so many South Africans, thought the grass is greener on the other side. Did a stint in the UK as a supply teacher, and after 50 days of non-stop rain, you wake up, it's dark, you go to bed, it's dark, and you're like, I think maybe I want to go back to South Africa. So I came back to South Africa and then literally started out in field marketing and then moved into the learning and development field and then expanded. I had some stints in Africa and in the Middle East
Okay.
in various roles in learning and development and in HR, and then kind of stumbled into the field of HR, well, employee experience, almost it started out probably maybe like a bit of a side hustle and then kind of now became the thing because I think it's a relatively new field and I
It
think it's
is.
exploding. So there wasn't really an official thing, and then by virtue of the fact that you do a little bit of this, do a little bit of that, and then you realize, hey, I'm in the employee experience field kind of thing, and that's how I suppose stumbled into it basically.
I think we're calling it a specialist generalist these days.
Yeah, I mean it's really weird. I don't even know what you call it these because everybody does everything these days, right? And I think
Yeah,
that's the evolution of work as well. Is that so many people will be working on different projects in different fields and taking on different roles all the time. One day you're busy doing recruiting, the next minute you're launching a wellness app. It just depends. It's in everything. It's in every field these days.
well, and I think that's such a nice sort of lead into the first question, which I wanted to ask you, because I mean, employee experience very much like that touches all parts of the business, and it's something that everybody really needs to be involved in. And I wanted to get your opinion on how you create that kind of internal buy-in within the organization. Yeah, how can you find the missing steps? How can you bring everybody in?
I think it's one of the things is that I always ask somebody the question around, like when you go to we're obsessed about customer service, right? And
Yes.
that's the reality. Most people are fussed about customer service. There's dashboards, and we're super focused on it, and we believe the customer is king. We want customer delight. Da 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 da. Da. But the flip side is if we just had to turn it, and that sometimes the when the light bulbs go on is that aren't our staff our customers?
Yeah.
Aren't our people our customers? And should we not be looking after them in exactly the same way, with that same kind of focus, with that same commitment, with that same dedication that we focus on the customer? We should focus on our customers who happen to be our people. And in the same way we want to delight our people, and delight our customers, we should delight our people. And then sometimes the lights go off, for execs and senior management's like, oh wow, never thought of it like that. But that's the reality, right? Those are our customers that we have to look after, and by default they're looking after our customers. So it's the happy here, happy there. And I think that's sometimes where people kind of start to discover the connect, that you can't have happy people, or unhappy people trying to make other people happy. It just doesn't work. And I think that's one element, is for the light bulb moment to happen.
Yeah.
But I think you also need to have folks who are able to kind of influence that across the board and be champions for it. And I think with everybody, and this doesn't have to be level based, doesn't have to be like only an executive or a senior manager or something like that. You can have influencers scattered across your business who are able to carry the flame and carry the torch for employee experience, to be able to go, guys, I mean, how does that feel for you? How would you feel if that happens to you? And very often that becomes the other trigger moment, is that you wouldn't treat a customer like that. Why are we okay with treating our staff like that?
Yeah.
And then that's the kind of stuff, I think, where you start having the light bulbs going off, and the switches being proverbially flicked, to say, let's start thinking a little bit about our people as well, how we treat them, um, how are they feeling? And I think that's the important thing, is the feel. Some people talk about the smell of a place. that's the culture of it, is the smell of the place. Other people say, how are our people feeling? And you can give it a whole host of names, and we can get, in fancy fandangled language. But at the end of the day, is how are our people feeling?
It is. I mean, I think the sentiment around things, the being able to track that in lots of different ways is super important. And I mean, how, in your opinion, how do you help businesses identify those gaps? So where are they, how are they tracking it? How do you help them see where the gap is in terms of this actual, because and it's part of sometimes my frustration is a little bit is a custom employee experience means once a year we run a survey, that's
Yeah.
it. But where, as you say, with customer data, we are tracking it, it's real time, it's dashboarded, it's being tweaked. And how do we help the organization identify those gaps and look for those metrics and start to see that?
Yeah, I think for me, one of the easiest ways to kind of do that is to start thinking about it in the entire value chain of getting our people into the business. So when I think about, like, I'm using HR speak now. So whether we're recruiting folks, whether we're trying to retain our folks,
Yeah.
whether we're trying to redesign the organization, or whether we're trying to reskilling, right? So all the R's. I think every step of the way, there's an opportunity for you to be able to hook in and kind of get some sort of pulse in terms of how we're tracking on this. And a lot of the time the data exists in piecemeal, somewhere. You know how long it's taking you to hire, or the cost of your acquisition, how
Mm.
long you taking to interview, how soon do people sign. All of those kind of things could all be, utilized in some way, shape, or form to get a pulse from the individuals on what's happening and where those gaps are. So, I mean, it could be something as simple as post an interview is asking somebody to do a little bit of a pulse survey or an NPS on how did you feel about
Mm.
that interview? Because you'd be amazed that some people are making decisions based purely on how they felt in that interview. It wasn't about how they did in the interview. It was how that panel made them feel. Was I offered a glass of water? Was I offered a cup of coffee? How did this place feel? Did I feel comfortable? Did I feel like I was made to feel inadequate, or was I made to feel stupid? All of those kind of things would lend
Yeah.
clearness to whether that person wants to come and work for your organization or not. And that is automatically employee experience. Starting there with how you were contacted to set up that interview, how you were even told that you weren't successful becomes employee experience. And I think
100%.
some of the stuff is so obvious, it's in our face, but we're just not taking the time to think about it because maybe we feel, oh, we're almighty organization. The person needs me. I don't need them. So they just have to suck it up and, think about the way they need us. So that's where people, I think, get it wrong.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at how you go and map a customer journey, when you map a customer journey, you'll go and you'll say, okay, cool. How do I find things on the website? If I phoned the number, did somebody answer? What was the quality of that interaction? I mean, that's how you map an entire customer journey, and you start to build that. And when we do employee journey mapping, one of the things I say to people is, it starts so far before. I mean, a lot of EVP work needs to be done, obviously, and you need to be able to make that. But can people find out information on your website? Is it when you're talking about things like a maternity policy on your website? Do you realize how many people are alienated by that? There's a whole part of the population that won't even apply because of some of the words that you use on your website.
Yeah.
You know, it's
I think
it's crazy.
it's like you say, and I think, I mean, you've just prompted a thought for me, is that it's literally the entire gamut from hire to retire, right? You
Yeah.
have to think about the entire thing. And some people go, oh, there are particular moments that matter. Yes, and it's a great start, right? To say,
Yeah.
okay, these are critical moments that matter, and how are people feeling? But the reality is that I don't only work for a moment that matters. I'm there all the
No.
time. I'm thinking about, very often I'm thinking about my job 24/7. And that's what people tend to forget. So you literally have to be thinking about the person's experience all the time, and how are they feeling? And that was the statement I made earlier when we just started, is that how are we making our people feel? And then we can come up with fancy D&I campaigns, we can come up with fancy EVP campaigns and all of that stuff. But if in any way, shape, or form I'm alienating from you, even in the EVP or in the D&I campaign, I've lost you, right? Because the ultimate aim of that entire campaign is inclusion. And from an inclusion perspective, it's about how I feel. Am I feeling like I belong? And that for me should be the ultimate test of your employee experience, is, are your people feeling like they belong there? Then you're doing the right kind of thing, is if people feel they belong. Everything else is just kind of falls by the wayside. Is at the end of the day, do I feel like I belong here? Do I feel included? That for me is the ultimate test of your employee experience.
Absolutely. And I mean, if we look at that, if in any way what you're saying in a campaign or whatever is incongruent to my experience of you as an organization, that gap just widens and widens and widens, and I start to become disengaged. So whilst it is important to obviously to keep your internal comms going and to land your EVP continuously and to have all of these different things, because people do forget sometimes why it's great to work in a certain place. It's super important that it's real and authentic. And if you haven't done something, or if you're answering a survey or a pulse and you've got to feed back to people and say, we noticed that a lot of people are unhappy about this. This is what we're doing about it, or this is what we're talking about right now, and this is what we're considering, or no is also an answer. At least then people know. But that's the element of conversation in an organization, is just saying it. There's got to be, as much as a communication strategy is important, the listening strategy. And I think that's what you're saying is got to be prioritized in an organization, right?
The key thing is around the action. For me, it's the action.
Okay.
You can do you can have a culture survey once a year, right? And then all you need to do is you ask for feedback, and people give you the feedback, and nothing happens with that feedback. I ain't responding to your survey again. Bottom line, because
100%.
nothing happened. So why are you asking me for information? So to echo your point, I mean, it makes all the difference. Is if somebody says one thing and you can act on that one thing, and there's a demonstrated change in something that came out of the survey, then boom, you're winning, because then people will also start trusting you more to say, if I do say something, something gets done about it. There's a beautiful scene in Ted Lasso. I don't know if you watch Ted Lasso.
I haven't seen it actually, and I love Ryan Reynolds.
It is amazing. The most amazing scene for me is he puts out a suggestion box.
Okay.
And people put in it's like his first day on the job. He puts out the suggestion box, and people put things in there. And I mean, everybody's upset in the soccer team. They're griping and groaning about leadership and stuff. Really, things he cannot manage. But there's one thingy that says the pressure in the showers is really low, and he goes, okay, cool. And then the next day, the grumpiest of all footballers, he was like, things are never going to change around here, blah, 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 blah. Walks into the shower, and he turns on the shower, and boom, out comes this water pounding on him to go, whoa, the dude, he's made a change. And it's that little thing, because now all of a sudden you fix the water pressure. I'm comfortable to tell you that I'm unhappy with something more serious, like a diversity issue or an equity issue or whatever it is. But if you can't fix the shower pressure, how am I going to be comfortable enough to trust you to be able to make a change on something as serious as a diversity issue or an equity issue or an affirmative action issue if you can't fix the shower pressure? And I think that's the point that I just wanted to jump on yours around. Yes, we can ask questions, but then we've got to listen, and we've got to act on what we are being told. Because if there's none of that, then the closing of that loop's not done, and you cannot build trust, because the foundation or the bedrock of all of this stuff that we do is trust. Because if there's no trust, then your culture goes for a loop. So if you had to draw it down to its bare bones basics, irrespective of what we're doing, it's all about engendering and building trust with our people.
I love that. And I mean, it's such a great example. And it's so obvious when you say it. And I can see now we're going to have like all those motivational posters on LinkedIn. And instead of Simon Sinek, it's going to be like from Ted Lasso. And
It
Imran
probably
talking.
will be.
Yeah, just sort out the shower pressure, man. Like, just start small. It doesn't have to be something huge. And I agree with you. And now I want to ask, you're obviously a bit of a sports fan from from the conversations that we've had and from this. So I want to ask you about employee experience and wellness because this is a big trend topic. It's, and I think it does also feed into feedback and asking people where they are and that what are you seeing happening in this space?
So, like, I mean, I think it's an amazing thing in that wellness has exploded, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
every company's now got a wellness thing, and we're on the wellness buzz. And look, I'm an avid runner, and how do you know somebody is a runner? Well, they will tell you. It's the same like MBAs, right? It's like, how do you know they've got one? They'll tell you.
Yeah.
But there's, for me, I think it's magnificent. There's the whole eternity of, eat, sleep, and exercise, right? If you're not eating right, you're not sleeping right, you're not exercising, everything else goes for a loop, and you're not going to be able to perform. And at the end of the day, all organizations are worried about productivity and engagement. I mean, that's the
Sure.
bottom line, right? We want productivity and we want engagement. So, I mean, I think it's magnificent that organizations are starting to think about physical well-being and emotional well-being, mental well-being. Um, but I think there's a shadow side to this whole thing, right? And I think the shadow side to it is where people start to look into this thing and go, so why? Are you only on this tip to say, I must be healthy so you can squeeze the last living few drops that I've got left in me?
Yeah.
Um, then it seems like disingenuous and it doesn't seem like it's coming from a good place. And that's something that I think we always have to be mindful of from a wellness perspective and the way it's pushed. Because if the agenda is pushed as I need you well, so you take fewer sick days of leave and that you show up here and you're working 19 hours a day on 4 hours of sleep, then you don't need that wellness program, if you know what I
Yeah.
mean, because that's counterproductive to the rationale about we want our whole beings to show up to the office every day. And again, to my earlier point is we want people to be able to live inspired and bring their whole selves to work. And that does mean looking after them in every aspect of it, whether that's encouraging them to eat healthy, to sleep well and to exercise. But at the same time, you don't want to force the extreme that we want every single one of our staff members to be up at 5, running 5 miles at 5 a.m. every morning. And on a Sunday, we've got the entire organization running 21 kilometers because we're working to that marathon. And then in 5 years' time, we all run in the comrades. That defeats the purpose. So I think sometimes, we're of the belief that wellness is going to lead us to productivity, and that sometimes sends the wrong message. I'd flip the script from a wellness perspective and say productivity leads to well-being. And what I mean by that is organizations should spend more time making work easier for people, removing hurdles, and then that's
Mm.
going to give us well-being. That's going to make me feel more comfortable to work because I guarantee you, Sally, if I said to you, I'm going to give you a promotion, okay, and I'm going to make you a CEO, and I'm going to give you a whole, a 50% increase. Okay, sounding good right now,
Yeah,
right?
no, I'm in,
Uh,
hey.
However,
Yeah.
however, it does require that you're probably going to have to put in maybe a 17, 18-hour day. Okay, you might have to work on weekends. I'm going to give you the toughest group of people that you ever going to have to work with. And what do you despise most about work? Give me something that you hate. Excel spreadsheets,
No, it's accounts, yeah, it's the
accounts,
account
managing
side, yeah,
accounts.
and
Okay,
tax. I hate
and
paying
tax.
SARS.
Okay, you're going to be doing tax returns all day, every day, 7 days a week. What's
Yeah,
your answer to me going to be?
yeah, it's a no, hey?
Thank you. And
Yeah.
that's the point that I want to make about wellness is that
Mm.
it doesn't matter. But listen, Sally, I've got this fabulous coach. He's going to coach you in your spare time to become the best runner that you're going to be. We've got a private chef for you that's going to cook healthy
Yeah.
meals for you. It's going to be gluten free, sugar free, taste free. It's going to be everything. And that's all part of the deal. Do you want in on that job or not?
Yeah, but I'm still doing tax. The answers are still a no. Hey, yeah.
Bingo.
Got
And
you.
that's where
Yeah.
I think organizations get it wrong is that find me in my flow, get me to be able to do the stuff that I'm excited about, that I'm jazzed about, that I feel good about, that plays to my strengths, that still challenges me and all that kind of stuff. And then you'll see the well-being in itself, because that productivity will lead to the well-being. So it's a little bit of a chicken and egg scenario that I'm talking about. But the reality is that I cannot just throw benefits at you, throw more money at you, throw a wellness campaign at you, but everything else about the work itself that you have to do is miserable as all hell. So nothing falls by the wayside. I don't know.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'll get off my soapbox now.
No, I mean, I think it's so valid, and I think there are two things on that. The first is I was having a very interesting conversation with some other people on the podcast from Coaching Culture, and we were talking about this, and they brought it up, and Mornay was saying, when you consider volunteerism, if you think about it, and we were talking about discretionary effort and how
Yeah.
you unlock that, and I mean, I think a lot of what you're saying speaks into that, because how do you get people to volunteer to do something? You ask them what they'd like to do. It's something that they feel has a purpose, meaning, and that their contribution is recognized and seen. They're thanked for doing it, but they do it for free,
Yep. I mean,
and
if
they,
you sorry to cut you there,
no,
but if you just think about something as simple as Wikipedia, right?
yeah,
There are people who are writing Wikipedia pages and they get nothing for it.
yeah,
Okay. They're all their names somewhere down the bottom of the page there if you go and look at it. But why do they do it? Because they're genuinely interested in it, and they feel like they're contributing to a bigger cause or whatever it is. And if you can tap into that, boom, you're winning. Because
yeah.
that's where that fountain of inspiration and productivity comes from. That I don't even have to pay you. I think it was what's his name, Dan Pink, in his book Drive, speaks about that whole thing. About productivity and purpose and being able to get better at it, which is why sport works so well, because you always you try and you're getting better at it. It's not easy, but you get better and you're feeling good about yourself in terms of making small incremental changes. And I think we have to copy that kind of model in work as well, because everybody feels good when they meet the deadline, or they beat the deadline, or they crack a challenging project and they win. Boom, that's what you want. So if you're able to get people to work in those kinds of spaces, then you're winning from a wellness perspective.
Absolutely. And I think what else is so interesting for me about wellness, and I'm very interested to hear your perspective on it, because we were talking a little bit about diversity earlier. For me, wellness is also intersectional in nature. What is well for you and well for me are completely different things. And there tends to be this very blanket approach to well-being. And it's kind of very much based on like the health check model and this and that. But there's, as you say, there are a lot of dimensions to wellness. And how to manage that at a very personalized level, because ultimately that's where we need to be, because people need to work on different pieces of wellness. Like if you tell me to go for a run and that's part of my well-being, I already run. So there's
Yeah,
nothing you can add to me. So wellness, then I'm disengaged from it because you're not adding value to my life. But if there's another
yeah,
aspect of wellness, like I'm not so great at the sleep side, that is something that I need help with. How do I
yeah.
get to pick and choose from my wellness offering that's truly going to add value to me as an individual? How do I feel seen?
Yeah, and then for me that it relates to the earlier point around being inclusive, right? And being able to give everybody an opportunity to say it's up to you. What we want is for you to be able to dictate what works for you. Like you're saying, is
Mm,
that I mean we talk about eat, sleep, and exercise kind of thing, but it's around the balance. Is you don't want everybody to become now super vegan with no gluten and no sugar and no nothing, and then they're miserable as all hell kind of thing. Similarly, you don't want everybody out running 42 kilometers. Maybe somebody just wants to go for a walk in the park. Maybe for
great.
somebody else, it's meditation because I need to buy myself some headspace. If for somebody else, it's just Just leave me alone for an hour so I can read a book or whatever it is, and that gets me to regulate. Because at the end of the day, it's about homeostasis. Look, there's a science
Yeah,
behind the wellness element, and let's
of
not
course.
discount that when your body's under stress, you have to sweat out cortisol, and the only way you can do that is to break out the sweat. So I think whatever the World Health Organization rules are, is like 20 minutes a day of brisk exercise is enough, right? And then that's the science of it. But I think being able to be flexible and allowing people an entire opportunity to say, do what works for you, whether that's a yoga class or whether it's a walk with your family, whether it's walking the dog, playing frisbee, doesn't matter. You don't all need to be Gerda Steins breaking world records on a down run at the Comrades,
Yeah,
right? Which is just phenomenal. And she's an absolute joy to watch because there you see wellness at play, right? Here's this woman totally in flow, running after 87 kilometers, has still got the energy to go and run and high five all the
yeah,
people in the stadium who were cheering her on. And so, I mean, to totally digress, but she's amazing.
she is
Um,
amazing.
but the reality is that I think it's around giving people the opportunity and the flexibility to once again find what works for them. And it's a buffet that says pick what works for you. Because that's the most important thing is that what are you going to do to get your homeostasis sorted so that you're able to eat right and sleep right and exercise to find that balance. So your balance is sorted. It doesn't have to be dictated by us that the way to do it is A, B, C, D, E. We can recommend and we can offer some guidance and we give you all of the tools that's there, but you ultimately need to go, okay, that works for me and I'm going to be doing that. And we need to be okay with that. We can't have a one size fits all approach that says wellness is only running, you know, 5 times a week. We can't be doing that because then we're running contrary to the entire concept of being inclusive and making people feel like they belong. Because some people are just going to go, dude, just leave me alone. I'm
Yeah.
okay as I am. So, and we've got to be okay with that because it's different strokes for different folks, you know.
No, 100%. And I mean, I think the buffet analogy is perfect in that, we've got to be okay with putting out the buffet and letting people choose what they want. We have to trust everybody enough to do that. And that's where that reciprocity of trust comes in.
And you hit the nail on the head when you talk about trust, right? Because
Yeah,
trust becomes the biggest thing, especially in the world today, where we've hybrid work has thrown, everybody for a loop in terms of the entire ethos of work is based on trust. Now, is that in those invisible workers, I've got to trust that they're doing what they're doing, and not have to force an organization to start doing keystroke management and checking if someone's online and all that. It's madness. Whereas then all we need to do is be able to trust our people that they're going to deliver on the outputs that we ask them to do. That becomes the essence of employee experience. Because what experience am I giving somebody if I'm having to say, I'm managing your keystrokes, I'm checking when you're logging on, I'm checking when you're logging off, and I want to
yeah,
know that you're working? Then, because let's be honest, you could be sitting across from me and still watch
yeah,
YouTube videos. So this whole theory that some managers have, this antiquated belief that, if they're not in front of me, they're not working. Dude, they could be watching Netflix in front of you, rather than watching it at home. So focus on the output, trust in your people that they're going to deliver. That builds out the experience.
100%. It's always fascinated me that people will pay people to attend work, not necessarily to do work. And I've always found it quite a fascinating concept that you're just paying me to be here, really.
Yeah.
It's amazing, actually.
And then if you think about some of the research that's been going on recently around the 4-day work week and all that kind of stuff, and
Hmm.
there's a lot of evidence starting to show that, that if you think about historically, where did we come from on a 9 to 5? It was
Hmm.
factory operating,
Yeah,
right? It was
industrial.
working in an
Hmm.
industrial era where I needed to clock in at 9 and
Hmm.
then clock out at 5 because I was physically making something on a conveyor belt or whatever it is.
Hmm.
We don't work that way anymore, right? I could be working on 6 different projects with 6 different teams reporting to 6 different line managers
Hmm.
with 6 different management styles. and I might not even be in the same country where the output of that stuff is being delivered.
Yeah.
And we want to be operating on a 9 to 5. And then the reality is that you start getting to the point where, I mean, I think it was France that now legislated the fact that I can't get an email after 6 p.m. or something like that. Do we
Yeah.
really want, the pendulum to swing to that point where you go switch off an email server at 6 p.m.? I can't get a mail because you want to protect my mental well-being. But if we start building a level of trust that says, I'll pop and respond to those emails after 6 or whatever it is because I'm responding to my colleague in the US or in Australia or New
Hmm.
Zealand. But in the morning when I need to take my aging dad for his insulin medication or his whatever it is, there's that reciprocity that I'm going to deliver when the time comes and I need to. That's the ultimate trust that we have from an employee experience perspective, that there's that reciprocity that you mentioned, that it swings and roundabouts. I'm going to deliver. Come what may, it doesn't matter what and when and how, but the output that you expect of me and that you're paying me for, you're going to get. Otherwise, I'm not the person, right? Why
100%.
have you gotten me for it?
Yeah. And I think that's exactly it. And I think that's where some organizations are going wrong, is they're not considering that social contract and that reciprocity. They're not considering the kind of, I don't know what the right word is, the nebulous nature of work at the moment. So they're saying exactly that. I want you to be well. I'm going to give you all of these online tools and things so that you can have more option. It's being read as, I expect you to work longer and harder for less.
Yeah.
So where I think organizations, in my personal opinion, need to go now is they need to come back with some changes in policy to show that reciprocity and to say, okay, cool, we are mandating now that, for example, no meeting may be longer than 50 minutes, or like this is a thing, or, there's no meetings on this day or something. There needs to be a show coming back, like a tangible show coming back from an organization saying, we recognize that the lines are blurred now, and this is how we're going to commit to giving you the space to allow for that reciprocity of, and we're trusting you and you need to trust us in the same way. And this is how we're, like a show of faith almost, this is how we're going to do it for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know a couple of organizations that do the no meetings twice or thrice a month, where it's mandated, no meetings on that day,
Mm,
to allow you that moment of some deep work and some reflective work, because people need to do that. If you,
100%.
some organizations have gone so far as saying, to your point, no meeting can be longer than 45 minutes. That gives you a chance to go to the bathroom, just get, maybe get something to drink, or,
Mm,
a snack or something before the next one starts, or just wrap your head around decompressing after the last one before the next one starts on the hour. So it's those little things that at least just buy your head, because I've had days where, in some instances, from a recruitment perspective, I was sitting in interviews from 8 to 5 nonstop, boom boom
yeah.
boom 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 boom, and then it's like, man, I just need to go to the little boys' room. Give me a break here. It borders on ludicrous, and then we wonder why our people are saying they're tired or they're burnt out. But we've got a wellness campaign and we've got a wellness app, and you can call them if you want to.
Yeah.
So it's that whole thing. Is it almost seems like, guys, when must I do that? If I'm in meetings 8 to 5, and sometimes if we work across time zones, I might be in meetings from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m., because of time zone differences, and these things happen if you're working with the US and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff, Australia, blah blah blah. So then when am I supposed to do this wellness, and when am I supposed to do my meditation and my half an hour cycle, and prepare my healthy meals, blah blah blah. So we have to be pragmatic about the whole thing, and the only time that means is during the day. I'm going to be able to do that. So I need to maybe skip out to the gym for an hour during the day. But the organization needs to trust that, yes, between 12 and 1 I'm at the gym, but that doesn't mean that I'm not making up the time in the evening when I'm sitting on a meeting with Australia from 7 to 8 p.m. And that's the thing, is that the trust and the reciprocity needs to be built out around that, because then that gives me my opportunity to be flexible, and it
Yeah.
buys me my opportunity to um, to leverage all of the elements of an EVP that you might be selling me when you employ me, about flexibility and all of that kind of stuff.
You just promised me a 50% increase. I'm just
Yeah, yeah.
okay. Okay.
I
Um,
I said a 50% increase in workload, isn't it? Oh yeah,
oh,
it
okay.
wasn't
No, no, I
salary, it
got
was
that.
just an
Yeah.
increase in workload.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah,
okay.
yeah, yeah. Just to clarify, that was the increase I promised. Yeah.
Yeah, no, all right, that makes sense. Um, and I want to ask you one more thing, and you and I have spoken about it in the past, and it's quite a like a controversial topic at the moment, is this idea of creating this network of influencers. And we alluded to it slightly earlier when we were talking about like the organization and telling everyone about EX. And I think this is a really big trend on the horizon, this building, actual influences into your employee experience strategy and actually remunerating influencers to actually almost be your people in the organization. And I know it's controversial. What are your thoughts?
Look, I think, man, that is just such a controversial topic, because I think maybe nobody's cracked it, right? And
Yeah.
and it and it lends some element to a different story, which is also on the horizon, which is the side hustle, right?
Mm,
So if you start thinking about it, every futurist, every what do we call them, millennial or Gen Z or Gen Alpha person is telling you organizations need to incorporate the side hustle and accept that people have side hustles and all of that kind of stuff in the business. And I think it's easier said than done, right? Because the reality is that if you're an ace entrepreneur, do you want to then now come into an organization and then be, wholly controlled by the organization?
mm,
Chances are not. But maybe if you're new and you're starting out in the work world, then you get the benefits of, the opportunity to work with like-minded people. Something sparks an idea, and then you get a fabulous idea that might become the next $1 billion idea. But then whose $1 billion is it? Is it the organization's or is it yours? And you don't want another please call me Vodacom drama that happened a couple of years ago, where the guys asking them for what's it, R1 billion or something like
yeah.
that, because he
Yeah.
said he came up with the please call me blah blah blah. So I mean, you've had to work out all of those nuances, and then still we've been talking about being fair and being, building trust. Is most rules says if something comes out of an organization in the employee, it's the organization's, right?
IP.
And
Yeah.
then the argument becomes to answer your question around, if I have a batch of influencers in my business, right? And they're the guys who are now tweeting on Yammer, and if you've got Facebook for Workplace, or if you've got Slack or
Mm,
whatever, they're the guys pushing your messages, driving your messages, and that's fabulous, right? So do they get remunerated? Should they get you remunerated? If so, how do we pay them on likes? And then do they
mm,
start selling the likes and paying people for likes? And all of that kind of stuff becomes very, 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 very complex. And 9 out of 10 times, you spoke about it earlier on, is that those folks are doing that purely for the joy of it, for the love of it, and because they get the kudos and they get the props that says, hey, look at me, I'm like the number one influencer on our platform, I got 1,000
yeah.
likes, da 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 da. So I think, Sally, I haven't answered your question purposely, because I honestly don't have an answer, and I don't think anyone's cracked it, because the complexity around what do we remunerate you for, how do we remunerate you, at what level,
Mm,
and then you got other people going, oh well, why should you get paid? Why am I not an influencer? Give me a chance to be the influencer.
mm,
Da 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 da. It just, there's this whole notion of the natural evolution of somebody who naturally takes on that role and they can influence, versus now somebody who decides, oh, there's money involved in this thing, so I want to do it, kind of thing. And that I don't think we've kind of cracked at an organizational level. I think TikTok's still trying to figure that stuff out. YouTube's still
yeah.
trying to figure that stuff out. Um, are we going to be able to do it in an organization? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know, and I don't have an answer. I must be honest.
I also don't. It's something that I see coming in more and more in organizations when we look at creating learning content where you're teaching other people how to do something because you're good at it. And that knowledge, how are we remunerating people for that? Like if somebody's good at it, you want them to be great. And I mean, for some people, and we're having this conversation around the Gen Alphas, and we're saying for a lot of people now, they're having conversations with their children, and they're saying, "Cool, are you going to become a doctor?" And the kids are like, "Why would I become a doctor?
I want to be a YouTuber.
I want to be a YouTuber because I will make a lot more money if I'm good. So I want to spend all the time I have becoming really good at content creation because that's where I see my opportunity." Now, I am terrified that when I'm in my old age, I'm going to be operated on by a professional YouTuber. That makes me worried at the moment because I see what my son watches, and I must be honest, I have no faith in those people. But
bring on the AI. Bring on the AI. Don't worry, the robots are going to sort that problem. You're going to be operated on by a robot. No, because everybody else is just going to be playing Fortnite and watching YouTube shorts and TikTok videos. I mean, I see it with my son. All he wants to do is play Fortnite because he's gonna be like, what's the dude's name now? He told me the other day. I forgot. My son's 10, by the way. Booga. Booga was the guy who won the World Cup, the Fortnite World Cup. I think was 3 or 4 years ago, and won like $1.6 million. So this is my son's career path. He is going to be the next Booga. Until we start doing the math, and I go, how many kids play Fortnite in the world? How many Boogers are there? So what? There's like, I don't know, 500 million people playing Fortnite, and there's one. So your chance is 1 in 500 million of cracking it. And if that doesn't happen, what are you going to do? Everybody's making TikToks. And you follow me on TikTok. I need the subscribers. Everybody's doing TikTok. Everybody's making YouTube videos. So what's your differentiator? There's absolutely nothing. So literally everybody's out there singing for their supper, if you think about it, because we're all now just turned into actors on TikTok and YouTube. Nothing else. The world's full of actors. We can't tell the difference between what's real and what's not real. You've got the advent of deepfake content that's coming out where you literally can't tell the difference between what's real and what's not real. I, for a moment, believed that the Pope was walking around with a Balenciaga puffy jacket on a couple of weeks ago, and so it's very worrying. And honestly, I don't have an answer in terms of where do we go to? Where does this thing? Where does it end? And now I'm going to sound like my father now, and I really know I'm old because I genuinely believe that every generation thinks that the next generation is on the cusp of total destruction, and it hasn't happened, right? Like, I mean, my mom always tells me the story of when she was growing up, they wouldn't show Elvis from below the waist because they felt that it was too risque of the way he moved his pelvis, and that was risque back then, like 60 years ago. Today, what are our kids seeing on TikTok and YouTube? So fast forward another 20 years, guys. I mean, geez, what do we have then? So I don't know, Sally. Are we going to be operated on by the robots, or our kids studying how to be doctors via TikTok? I don't know.
I also don't, but I think though that we are going to see this kind of content creator network happening in organizations. I think we're going to see it starting to become a skill set to be able to make things relate, and that sort of almost edutainment, entertainment part. I think some people are going to say, I bring this skill to the organization, and where this person might be an amazing engineer or this person might be amazing at that, I bring the ability to influence people to do things. And if you want my skill set, I'm going to be expected to be remunerated for that in some way. I don't know what it's going to look like, but I think it's going to happen soon.
I'm giggling because I think I've been I've been in the learning and development space for 20 odd years and all that stuff. And so on occasion, I get asked to MC a lot of functions and all of that kind of stuff. But because it's part of the role, I don't get remunerated for it,
Yeah.
And very often people will see me in the corridor and they go, dude, you have such a cool job. You just do MCing all the time. I'm like, no, dude, that's not my job. I have a day job. I do that stuff just cause. And people like me and they respond to it. So I think historically it's always been that you bring your whole self to work and you are remunerated for that. So if you've got the skill to do a bit of emceeing and content curation, hey, cool. I'm not going to say no if somebody goes, oh, we'd love your ability to do that. Here's a factor of X to your salary. I don't think anyone's going to say no to that, but I do believe that it's going to be, have to be figured out on a commensurate level, and then ultimately becomes a question of why does he get it versus why can't I get it? And that becomes the debate. But isn't that an age-old debate around the working world anyway? It's like, why do they get
100%.
X and why do I get Y? So I don't think it's really a different question. It's just around what do we put the number at? And how do we figure it out as to why do they deserve a little extra and I don't?
Yeah. No, it's gonna be a metric thing ultimately, isn't it? So if I have to ask you and say one thing that you would give advice to people and say, in your employee experience strategy or in your leadership right now, here's one thing that you think they should be doing. What is that one thing?
I think I'd go down to action again and say, you ask questions, whether that's through pulse surveys, whether that's through your culture audit or whatever it is, you ask questions and act on the responses that you get, because that ultimately is going to be the biggest lever around you building out the trust, developing the culture in the organization that says we have a speak up culture. When we talk, we are listened to, something gets done about it. So we're comfortable to talk and to speak up. Because if you don't, then everything's dead in the water. Then don't even do the pulse surveys and don't even do those culture audit surveys, because you're wasting everybody's time. If you're not going to act on them, you're not going to do anything about it, then don't do it. I would say rather act on the stuff that you're asking about, make visible changes and shout it from the rooftops to say, we asked, you said, we've done. Because you'd be amazed at how people don't know. People have short memories. Like just last week, I said the shower pressure is low, and now you fixed it. Thank you. Sometimes people forget about that. People have short memories when we do good things for them. So I think you have to shout it from the rooftops, because then that reinforces the message. You asked, we heard, we did something about it, and ta-da. So now we're asking again. So that there's a level of trust that to be built, that when we ask, we'll do something about it.
So in a nutshell, fix the shower, man.
Yeah, fix the shower.
Just fix the shower.
The shower. Yeah, listen to the stuff that comes out of the suggestion box.
That is very good advice, and definitely going to be our takeaway. And Imran, thank you so much for your time today.
No, it's cool.
If people want to connect with you, what is the best way for them to do that?
So I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm notorious for not checking my DMs on LinkedIn. So, but yeah, just hit me up on LinkedIn or whatever. It's absolutely cool. I'm also on Facebook. I'm as Imran Cassim. I'm on TikTok, and I'm on Instagram, and my profiles are public. So anybody can just add me, and if you want to just ask a question or whatever it is, just pop me a message. But most of the stuff that I post is around running and my cologne collection, which is the two things that I'm really and my cats. Those are the things that I'm passionate about outside of the employee experience world.